You're listening to the Family Discipleship Podcast.
Welcome to the Family Discipleship Podcast. We're here to equip and encourage Christian parents to lead their families, now posting every other Monday all year long. This is Adam Griffin, and I'm here with my co-host and my wife, Chelsea Griffin, both in one.
I'm both of those.
Yes, Chelsea, two titles, one person.
I'm almost like the Trinity, but not quite.
And my ex-girlfriend. Yes. Chelsea, can you think of a time when it was difficult for you to stand by and let our kids do something for themselves? I know you talk to a lot of moms about they're overcoming that because you're very good at it. Can you think of a time where you're like, ooh, I need to get over this?
Yeah, I'm trying to pick which one I want to share. And I never want to embarrass her kids. Although I'll just say that Gus is an excellent pancake maker today.
Boy, that's true. 12 years old.
I remember the first time that I saw him do it. And you know what it takes in your muscles to flip a pancake correctly? There's just like no way to get around it. You have to try it, and you usually have to mess one up.
Sure.
And it is so hard to watch a kid do it. You are like, give me that spatula. It's like this, and they can't get it right until they do it.
Yeah.
And I saw him mess up a pancake horribly, and it was totally marred. And he looked sad, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go away. I think that's good. And so I was like, I'm just going to go away for a few minutes because he can feel me hovering over him.
The scrutiny feeling?
Yeah, he can feel that, and he doesn't need that. And so I went away for like 10 minutes, and I came back, and there was like the original marred pancake, one more kind of messed up pancake, and then there were two perfect pancakes.
Hey!
And I was like, dude, you got it. I was like, you totally got it. I was like, he does not need me hovering right
That's
here.
good. Yeah, stove stuff does make me remember that first time that one of our kids tried to turn off the stove and didn't get it right, and the gas was on all night in our kitchen.
Hey, we lived.
We did. Look at us. We survived. We're still here to talk about it. I've got almost all my limbs, which is still it's great.
The time they put a pizza in the oven on the cardboard.
Oh my goodness. I was freaking out.
Was incredible.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. So there's mistakes made along the way, but how do you learn if you don't let them make a mistake, right?
Right.
You can't just do it for them. That's why I'm so glad today we have on our episode, Chelsea, the reclaimer of righteous resilience, the king of capability, author, thinker, counselor.
Yes.
David Thomas is with us. David,
go.
how are you?
What a generous introduction. The king of capability. No one has referred to me as that since this book came out. I'll take it.
Take it.
Today's the day.
I bet you can flip a pancake too. I bet you know how to do that.
You've no idea how much I was smiling and fighting back laughter as you all were telling that story. I love everything about that. In fact, I really wish I'd known that story to ask your permission to let that be the introduction of the book. I mean, that's everything we want to talk about and experience right there.
Today's the audio introduction. You could retitle it 3 Pancakes Away. Just let them make mistakes, and then by the third pancake, they've got it. We're just 3 pancakes away. David, for those who don't know you, who maybe don't know about the Raising Boys and Girls or the Little Yellow House, tell us about you, and then let's talk about how we can help kids be capable. So first, tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. Well, I'm first and foremost a proud son and brother, husband and father, and in addition to those being my favorite roles, I'm also the executive director of a nonprofit in Nashville called Daystar Counseling Ministries, where I've had the great privilege of working with kids, adolescents, and families for the past 30 years. And out of that work have had the opportunity to write some books and host a podcast with my dear friend and colleague, Sissy Goff, and just take what we're learning every day and sitting with kids and families and translate that to what we hope is helpful information for parents and educators and coaches and grandparents.
Boy, it is. It is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, our listeners love you guys.
Thank you.
More than they love us, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, tell us about your new book, Capable. Where'd the idea come from? Was there a moment in your counseling room or maybe multiple that made you say, listen, the people need a book? Tell us about that.
I think it really was multiple. I think it was the growing concern that we've been seeing for some time, but has felt accelerated since the pandemic, really. I think for so many of us, the concerns we observed during the pandemic, our great hope was we would climb on the other side of that and see this significant shift and course correction, and we just have not. I think one clear example being the American Academy of Pediatrics issued a state of emergency in 2021 as it relates to youth mental health, and that's not been rescinded. And the belief for all of us was surely that shift will take place at some point, and it hasn't. We've just continued to see growing evidence of 1 in 5 kids struggle with anxiety, 1 in 3 adolescents, 20% of adolescents report having a major depressive episode at some point in the past year. Suicide is now the 3rd leading cause of death for 15 to 29-year-olds. Just these scary, overwhelming, deeply concerning statistics that not only haven't shifted back in a more hopeful direction, but sadly are only getting worse. And within all of that, the U.S. Surgeon General not so long ago defined youth mental health as the crisis of our time. And within that, Sissy and I would add a crisis of capability that we're seeing with kids and adolescents. And what we want to say clearly in any conversation we're afforded to have about this topic is that we wholeheartedly believe, we've seen 3 decades of evidence to confirm this, that, God has built capability into the kids we love. So this is not something they have to muster up or go out and find. This is part of who I think God hardwired them to be. Our dear, dear friends, Jay and Catherine Wolf, wrote the foreword to this book, and they tell a great story of a prayer they pray over their 2 sons that is a message I wish every kid on the planet would hear with consistency throughout their growth and development, and that is that God made you to do the hard things in the good story He is writing for your life.
That's good.
And so that's in them. Our job as parents is just to help create context where kids get to tap into that. But what we're seeing, and Chelsea, it's one of the thousands of reasons I loved your pancake story, is evidence of where parents are stepping into those moments in the everyday that make kids feel less capable. And I could unpack about 100 things from the wisdom of your story. I think one of the things in particular that stood out to me was your wise knowing as a mom, like, A, this is going to be messy. 2, there's going to be smoke all over my house because they're going to burn the first several. All things that we know are going to happen when we let kids try things. And the instinct is, let me just do it for you. It'll be cleaner, it'll be quicker, it'll be less messy. And we could apply that to 1,000 moments in life where I think we unknowingly stand in the way of kids accessing that capability. And again, I think it's with the best of intentions many times. I don't think any of us want to watch kids we love struggle. Nothing about that feels comfortable or right. So we're in essence having to develop skills ourselves as parents that are counterintuitive. Like, how do I learn to step back when my instinct is to step forward? How do I learn to let a mess happen when I'd like it to be clean? How do I learn to, this is a biggie, deal with my own discomfort while I watch my kids live out the wisdom of what we've all been promised in Romans 5, Romans 8, John 16. Like, we know this. We know the pathway to hope starts at the intersection of struggle, that gives way to perseverance, that builds character, that creates kids of hope. And I desperately wish that there were a gummy or a vitamin we could give our kids before bed and wake up hopeful people in the world. But the reality is that path was true for us. That path is true for the kids we love. So the question becomes, how can I deal with discomfort when I know my kids are traveling that path?
That's good.
Yeah, there's a lot of parental discomfort here, but I would encourage the moms and say the more you let yourself experience, the easier it gets. Once you do it and you realize like the mess isn't that bad. Our kids have broken dishes emptying the dishwasher, and of course we have never said, "Oh, that's it. You lost the opportunity to empty the dishwasher." It's like, no, you need more reps, not less, right? Because you stack coffee cups in such a way that as soon as you open the cabinet, they actually fall out, and that's okay. It costs us 1 coffee cup, and we obviously have more than we needed. And so now you actually know how to clean up glass. Now you know that too. What to do quickly. You get the dog out, and you put on shoes, and you get the vacuum, and you do all this, and we make sure there's no glass so nobody gets hurt. And then you try again with the dishwasher situation, and they learn from that. You can't stack these up that high because they fall out, and that's okay. But yeah, you get comfortable with it because, it just becomes their normal and yours that this mistake didn't crush any of us, you know?
And example, there's also this great gospel opportunity to say, when they break the glass, we didn't shame them, didn't embarrass them, didn't humiliate them. And maybe the tendency would be, they're going to grow up in shame or they're going to grow up in feeling humiliated. No, we taught them that they don't have to run and hide when they make a mistake.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a normal part of growing up and learning things. Mom and dad aren't mad that you broke the mug. We don't love breaking mugs, but we're not mad at you.
Yeah,
This is what
it's
happens.
fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Yeah.
And so you get more comfortable and you go, oh, none of these things, actually crushed us like maybe we thought they would, or it didn't have to go perfect. Emptying the dishwasher doesn't have to go perfectly. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Describe for us the kind of parent that you pictured reading this when you were writing it. What does their daily struggle look like?
I really would go as far as saying I think it's every parent, whether you have a toddler or my 3 kids are young adults, and I can still feel the pull inside of me. I was having a conversation with my son who's 24 the other day, and he is officially at that age where he's a groomsman in a lot of weddings right now. So he's got to travel out of town and book flights. And I was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe how many trips you have. Like, have you booked any of those flights? And you all know what's going on inside of me. All that thinking of the longer you wait, the more expensive they're going to get, the fewer options you're going to have. And I could feel myself reaching for my laptop while we were talking. Like, hey, let's jump on the Southwest website together. Yeah. And you all, again, I had to resist that instinct of, he's old enough to book his own flight. He's done multiple of that. And
or to learn his lesson when he doesn't.
That's
right?
it.
Yeah.
If he, or I will say, when he waits too long and the ticket's twice as much, there'll be so much good learning that happens in those moments. So I think whatever age kids you love, wherever they are in life, I want to invite parents. Here's a practical assignment to think about. I want you to think about in this season with that kid, what are 2 things you are currently doing that they could be doing for themselves? What are 2 things they could almost do for themselves? And I want to challenge you to back away from all 4.
Nice.
So it'd be a great thing for parents to think about. See, if this is a toddler, as soon as kids can walk, they can pick up toys.
Yeah.
They can lower and load the bottom level of the dishwasher, like all the possibilities that exist. And can I say this too? One of my favorite parts of the book is we have a section in the middle called Capable Connections, where we talk about the relationships that strengthen capability in kids' lives. And we break down the 4 core relationships of moms and sons, dads and daughters, moms and daughters, dads and sons. And we talk about some of the unique callings within those relationships and some of the unique challenges. And I will simply say this. One of the things we talk about is paying really close attention to an even greater pull that we've observed in a lot of years of doing this work within the opposite gendered relationship. So let me give an example. I had a hilarious mom in my office not long ago. She grew up with 3 brothers, and she said, David, it did not occur to me until I was in high school that I had been making my own lunch since I was in elementary school, and my mother was still making all 3 of my brothers' lunches. And so out of that pull within that opposite gender relationship, sometimes we are harder on the kids of our same gender. And I think even that comes from a good place. I think dads listening, we know what it takes to be a man in this world. We want the boys we love to feel prepared. Moms in the world, you know what it takes to be a woman in this world. And you want girls to feel prepared. And sometimes we're harder out of that desire for preparation with same-gendered kids. And we are easier, sometimes even rescuing more with the opposite gender. So there's unique opportunity, I think, specific to certain relationships that we can pay even greater attention to this pull to want to step in and do too much rescuing.
That's good.
And I believe that. I think I see that too. I think I've seen that with some of my friends where the dad is doing a lot for some daughters.
Yes.
And he's trying to show them that a man will serve you and take care of you.
Yeah, with the best intentions.
The best.
Right?
Like it's so sweet. But then some of those jobs do need to be handed to the girls.
Indeed.
That when I was a kid, I asked my dad to teach me how to mow the lawn. That looked like a cool job to me. I really wanted to. And he said he would rather die than have a woman in front of his house mowing the lawn.
I share that with your father.
And yeah, I thought that was, I even as a kid, I thought it was really sweet. And I asked him to teach me how to change the oil in my truck. And he was like, your truck changes its own oil. And I was like, wow, it's so advanced for being such an old car. And he was like, Yeah, it leaves a he said, you've seen that puddle in the street, right? He was like, we just put more in it. And I was like, okay, well, I learned a lot there.
Yeah, but we're not trying to raise damsels, right? We're not trying to raise people that need to be rescued from everything.
Right.
And I don't mean that just for girls. I mean that for boys too.
Yeah.
So I love that picture you're painting for us, David, because I can see that. I don't have daughters, but I know that if we had a fourth kid who was a daughter, I could see me just going, your three brothers are going to take care of that. We'll teach you something different, which is that these boys are going to take care of that for you. I can see that in me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we would have done everything for her. All right, David, you say in your book that sturdy is better than successful. Unpack that for parents who might have unintentionally built a lot of their parenting approach around achievement.
I honestly believe in this day and time, there is an invitation to achievement that exists for every one of us as parents. I mean, you all think about how much language in our world right now exists around optimization.
Mm-hmm. Right.
How can I optimize? Yep. Absolutely. How can I optimize my experience that I think is just spilled right over into the parenting space? And I think, we're also a world that really loves hacks. We don't love habits. We want to figure out a shortcut to everything. And I wish there was a shortcut to great parenting, but the three of us know with all certainty there's not. Like, it's just a long, beautiful, transformative opportunity for growth and the building of some healthy habits within that journey. But I think if we get hooked into all of that language of hacks and optimization and success, I think it spills out into how we create rhythms as a family, what we prioritize as a family, and even culturally, what we elevate as the most important things. I heard a researcher once say you can tell a lot about a school by what's in the trophy case when you walk in the door. And I think that's such a great thing to think about, and then think about it within the context of our homes. Like, what are we celebrating, prioritizing? I'm going to make some people really uncomfortable with what I'm about to say, but I say it with a lot of grace and love and what I hope is good challenge. But Sissy and I in traveling have had this ongoing conversation with children's pastors who have reported this identical thing to us over and over, that the biggest hurdle they face in this day and time in getting families in the building and just being able to partner with parents around discipleship is, everyone knows what I'm about to say, youth sports, travel sports.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so just even that, and I'm not saying travel sports are bad. I'm just saying if that's the highest priority, even to the point that we can't even get in the building to worship together as a family, to prioritize spiritual development, then we're chasing something, we're prioritizing something, and we're defining something as success. And so I just think it's a really important question we want to wrestle down and wrestle with.
Totally right. Yeah. Was it John Tyson we were talking with? He said, if it was for football, no one would question it. He's every day. We're going to do football practice every day. We're going to miss Sunday because we got football practice. Yeah. But for some reason, if you said we're going to disciple our kids like that, people are like, whoa, that's weird. Who's got time for that? We don't have time for that. And so inefficiency, a parent would go, well, we're so busy. If I don't do it, it'll take us too long. So I'm going to have to step in and tie their shoes for them. I'm going to have to step in and pack their lunch for them. I'm going to have to make sure that they followed their teacher's instructions. We've done a lot that has honestly been, the verses escape me, but it's in the Proverbs where it says, like, a disciplined son brings rest to your heart.
29:17.
29:17.
Discipline your son, and he will become a delight to you.
Yes, and he'll bring rest to your heart. And that is what I think, when you talk about capable children, part of the rest it brings to the parent's heart is you get to go, I've raised a kid who knows how to do this. I'm actually literally going to rest. I don't have to engage right now. I don't have to be anxious about it. And my kid has joined me as a partner adult. Like, they're able to join us in doing the things they're called to do. Yeah. Yeah.
I follow this junior high teacher on social media where he just reads emails from parents. That's all he does on Instagram. He reads emails he got. One of them said, this one really tickled me. Most of them are just excuses. Again, like, baseball's important. My son didn't do the project. Can't you just give him more time, etc. But one of the funniest ones I thought was, mom was saying that her child is like a 7th grader, couldn't handle hearing about the Great Depression. And she was like, in our house, we like to keep things a little bit more uplifting and positive. So like if you could skip that part of history, that would be great.
Wow.
Because we can't encounter, sad things like
oh
that.
my goodness.
So you should
Wow.
be skipping it in 7th grade history. And that brings me to my next question. You talk about growing mental health struggles in our kids, in our youth. We're seeing anxiety, isolation, a lack of confidence in handling challenges. Which of those 3 things, anxiety, isolation, lack of confidence, should we be the most concerned about right now?
Do I have to just pick one?
No, just go off. That's really what we
Say
want.
all
We just want you to
3.
go off.
Are they connected?
They are all connected, and they
Yeah, they
are
are.
all correct. And I, depending on the moment, maybe just shift one to the first place and put the other at second and third, but they're all concerns. They're all concerns. And, if we were to just extract anxiety for a moment within the conversation we're having, the research has long told us that the 2 most common parenting practices with kids who are anxious are escape and avoidance. I see them struggling and I want to extract them from the hard. The very story we're all laughing at, like hearing about the Great Depression will be too much. So let's just not talk about that at all. As opposed to, what do you need to do when you're hearing about hard things in history?
Yeah.
I mean, you all think about how that skill set is something every one of us as adults employs every day. I have to figure out every morning when I open up my news app, how am I going to work with the fact that I'm bombarded with hard, discouraging, and often despairing news? Like, what am I going to do with that? I got to figure out, how much can I take in? How can I move toward action? Like all the different ways that I'm working within that the end goal we want to be kids who can name and navigate their experience, who have practiced healthy coping all throughout the journey of growing up with us, so that they can operate in the world with whatever challenges come their way. I love the language of the recovery movement that talks about dealing with life on life's terms. That's a target we want to be moving toward with all kids. How can I raise kids who can deal with life on life's terms?
Yeah.
And within the previous part of our conversation, who we've laid a foundation of faith that they can access. That, we talk about in this moment in time, we're seeing greater evidence of kids' feelings are over here and their faith is over here. And it's like the 2 never intersect or come together. And we want kids to feel like my faith should and can inform my feelings at all moments. Like it can be one of my best weapons to battle the experience of worry or anxiety.
You encourage parents to shift from rescuing their kids to helping them build resilience through small moments of discomfort. What could that actually look like? Can you give us some everyday examples?
I'd love to. So think on escape and avoidance being the default settings. What if I practice in the direction of an equation we called support and challenge? And so I'm going to lead with support, some kind of empathy statement like, hey, buddy, that math doesn't just look hard. That math looks way harder than I remember math being in 4th grade. And then challenge could be the form of a question. We love asking kids good questions that help develop the skills of problem solving and critical thinking and accessing capability. So do you want to try 3 more problems and then take a break? Do you want to go in early tomorrow for a help session? Do you want to email your teacher if you feel confused about the concept or can't remember what was taught? See where I'm inviting them into problem solving and critical thinking and their own capability. And I'm also equipping them for all the down the road. When I'm not in place and the math is hard, which it was for me in college, I had to know how to get to the study center to get some extra help. I had to know how to figure out how to employ a tutor when I was struggling in accounting and as a sophomore in college. So are we practicing those skills in the everyday right now of support and challenge so that kids know how to access that for themselves when we're no longer in the picture?
That's good.
Yeah, this is not to push back on this idea, but I do want to think about the parent who's going, I get it, I'm supposed to create more opportunities of discomfort for them. I think of how when our kids were little, they did not want to learn to swim. There was like a fear there, and we were like, no, you are going to learn to swim. And Also, at some point, we were at a swim party and a kid fell in the water and he couldn't swim. And I didn't go, hey, you're just going to have to learn to swim. We jumped in and rescued that kid. For the parent that's going, but David, isn't there some time I'm supposed to, as a parent, I don't want to be a helicopter, like right over them, making sure, or a snowplow, making sure they never face anything hard. But I do think there is a time for the parent to step in. How does a parent walk that line of going, or maybe even speaking to the marriage that goes, my spouse thinks it's at this line and I think it's at that line. How do you help people navigate that? But when do I step in? When do I say, hey, this is it just when it becomes physically dangerous? Or are there other lines I should be careful with?
It's a great question. And I love that you ask it, because absolutely there are times when we do. And if safety is compromised, then that's a deal breaker right there. Like, absolutely, we're going to do some stepping in for the sake of safety. I would argue, even when kids are experiencing some hard that might cause us to question, I would still want to invite parents into at least a first step of what we call experimentation. So what if instead of me emailing the teacher, I let them try to have the conversation with the teacher? What if instead of me reaching out to the friend's mom who they're in conflict with, I let them try to use their voice and work some of that through? Because we could certainly step in on the backside, but if we step in first every time, I don't think it invites kids into tapping into their own capability. And, in all caps, I don't think it trains us in the direction of experiencing and attending to our own discomfort. So I think both require a lot of practice.
Right. Yeah. And Chelsea and I were both teachers. We can both testify to the amount of kids growing up who their parents are their first defender. You know, the parents still, we have friends that are college coaches who would say they have athletes on their team whose moms will reach out to them about their playing time. Even though these are now paid athletes, this is their job. They're paid more than the coach. And mom is still the one handling their business for them. And we see that. So I like what you're describing, experimentation. I do think if there's a parent out there going, is this a line I should cross to in community, answer that question of saying, like, is there some fear in me? And if there is a rivalry between spouses, to be able to say, well, let's lay that down before the Lord and say, how does Scripture guide us in this? But we are trying to raise capable kids. We're not trying to raise boys and girls. And I said, no, sorry, that's your brand. We are trying to raise boys and girls, but we are trying to raise them to be men and women, right? We're trying to raise men and women. We're trying to, so how do we get them from this to that? Chelsea and I just had a conversation at a date last week or the week before about mowing the lawn and how comfortable I feel with our boys with, things that I have had friends who've had accidents involving lawnmowers. And so there's nervousness in there for me, but also like I'm trying to navigate some of those things. Let's turn the corner a little bit to thinking about the Christian parent in particular. When you think about these moments where the parent has an opportunity to experiment with the kid's capability, how do you see that also as maybe an opportunity to disciple this kid, to point them towards not just the way Christ made them, you've talked about that, but what scriptures come to mind for you when you're thinking about raising a capable generation? How are we discipling these kids towards what the Lord has for them?
You know, I was thinking about John 16 and the wisdom of those words. In this world, you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And I think
that's good.
Within the wisdom of those words is so much of the practice we're talking around. You know, I think the practical of what does it look like for me to take heart? And when I open the news and I feel overwhelmed and I can feel myself sliding into despair, what does it look like for me to anchor myself to the truth of those scriptures? Both I can take heart and he's overcome. And I think when I can do that, and I can't do that without a lot of practice in the space of healthy coping. I was riding in the car the other day and listening to a podcast, and it was around a lot of the statistics we were talking about on the front side, and it was a researcher being interviewed, and I could feel myself just drowning in the hopelessness around that. And I realized in that moment, I'm going to finish this podcast, not right now. I hit pause, and I went from listening to this researcher's voice to CeCe Winans' voice, who
let's go
speaks truth to me in the most profound ways. And I just let myself just kind of saturate in that truth and wisdom, and at a later point finish the conversation. So see, I would argue that was the practice of healthy coping right then, of anchoring myself to that truth, of the reminder that I couldn't get to in my own head, but she helped me get to, of he's overcome the world.
Yes. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
There used to be this show on TV called The Dog Whisperer. I don't know if you remember it, with
Oh, yes.
Caesar Milan. And he'd always say, like, he'd enter these situations where a dog is out of control. And he would say, people hire me to train their dog, but really I need to train the owner.
Yes.
It's about training the owner. I wonder if you could speak for a minute when you're thinking about your new book. And maybe a parent's picking it up, this going, like, this is how I'm going to make my kid different. David's going to help me with my kid. But how much of this book, when you're thinking about it, is like, no, I'm trying to create capable parents who are also like, what I'm trying to do is address in the parent what needs to be different. Maybe there's a parent out there who's going, hey, you're asking me to create a kid who's resilient. I'm not resilient. You're addressing anxiety in the kid. I'm stressed out. How does this maybe, what you were writing, how does it minister to the mom or the dad who's going, I actually need to learn some of these lessons?
My hope is that it will minister greatly. And my hope is that it will be done. This is so important to Sissy and I both. And everything we write and our teaching and the podcast, that parents feel us, experience us joining them and inviting them into extending a lot of grace to themselves. Because here's the thing, you all, we have an acronym in the book that we invite parents to teach kids. And that is that FAIL, F-A-I-L, is a first attempt in learning.
Good.
And
That's
here's
great.
the deal. Every one of us became parents, those of us who have multiple kids, with a firstborn, which means that kid is our first attempt in learning, which simply means we are going to fumble the ball all over the place because we're doing all kinds of learning. And then we'll have a second and think we've kind of got it figured out, and that kid will be completely different from our firstborn. And it's a first attempt in learning that kid. And so we are all learning, we are all growing, which means we all need to practice extending grace to ourselves and figuring out, to that last question, what does it look like for me to trust God in the moments that I find myself sliding into despair or even beating myself up? As much as we're seeing growing evidence of perfectionistic kids, we're seeing so much evidence of that with parents who are just trying so hard, beating themselves up when they don't get it, quote unquote, right, as opposed to believing, no, this is a first attempt in learning.
That's good.
We say to parents all the time, we can only take the kids we love as far as we've gone ourselves. So my great hope, to your great question, is parents would see this as an invitation to grow resilient kids and grow resilience in themselves.
Amen. Yeah. I think there can be a temptation in anybody's house to take what you're doing and use it as an excuse to, like, spitefully tell your kids to do things for you. And what I love about the tone that you've taken and the way that you've written is that it really is driven by love. It's love for this kid. It's not love for self. It's not laziness that says, actually, I need my kids to be able to do more things so I don't have to do them, or because I hear the parent that has the 16-year-old who's going, yeah, they just won't do it. They won't do it. If I tell them to clean the room, they won't do it. And so out of spite or out of anger, I will yell at them to be capable. And I think what you're talking about is such a loving and such a kind-hearted, and obviously it's easier maybe the sooner you start, but it's never too late to start saying, how do I help this kid be resilient? I'm trying to help these kids be adults.
Yes.
One more thing I want to talk about before we let you go. You bring up in the book, and certainly parents ask us a ton of questions about it. I'm sure you get it all the time. But the role that technology and social media plays in this generation and what impact it has on whether or not these kids feel capable, or whether or not how exactly maybe the phone makes them maybe less capable. What are you guys seeing? What are you and Sissy seeing when it comes to technology and its impact on this generation's capability?
There is no question it has had and is having and will have an enormous impact on our kids. And I don't think we can educate ourselves enough, because the reality is, though it's been around a while, we're still new to this animal of technology in so many ways. And our kids are more well-versed than we are in many ways. So there's a lot of learning still to happen for all of us. And I really wish that The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt were required reading for every parent of an adolescent. Like, your kid couldn't get their driver's license unless you'd finished reading the book and took a quiz on it, because I think Jonathan did an outstanding job of condensing the best data we have access to. And I would follow that up with, to your question, we did an interview on the podcast with Catherine Price, who wrote a great book called How to Break Up with Your Phone. And Catherine and Jonathan Haidt were invited to write a book for kids. So parents kept saying, could you put some of this content in language that's accessible for kids and adolescents? So they came together with the best data from both of their books and wrote a book called The Amazing Generation, which I would also say should be required reading for all kids and adolescents, that helps kids make good connections around the way our brains and bodies are impacted, all the ways they're impacted by the animal of technology and the animal of social media. So I really do want to recommend any parent listening, if you're only going to get one book, I'm actually going to encourage you to get that book above ours because it feels so necessary. If you're going to get 2 books, you could get Capable next. But I do think it's game-changing information that feels important for all of us to have access to as we make decisions. And notice I said we, not just as parents make decisions for kids, but I want kids to practice making decisions for themselves the deeper they get into adolescence.
Amen. All right, David, before we let you go, I want to ask you a 2-part question here. What's your prayer for the families who are going to pick up a copy of Capable? Like, what are you really hoping for? Maybe it's the future of their family. Maybe it's for them, the feeling that they have from the Lord as they read it. And then before we let you go, we'd love to hear how our listeners can be praying for you in particular.
Wow, what a kind question. Thank you. I'd say to the first question, my great hope is that this book is another reminder or invitation to trust the slow, steady work of God in the lives of our kids. We talk about that all throughout the book, that message is woven in. And I think in some of the harder seasons of parenting, it can be easy to make long-term determinations based on a short-term observation, as opposed to anchoring myself to so much of the wisdom you named, like, am I in community with people who can remind myself the truth? Have I turned this voice off and turned on the voice of CeCe Winans, who's going to remind me of what's true? Like all the different ways that we can access the truth of the slow, steady work of God in our lives and our kids. And I would say to your kind second question, I would love for you to pray that as we talk about this book, as we've been given some really wonderful opportunities like today to talk with parents, I want so much. I don't have a problem in the world with challenging parents. I love challenging parents because I love seeing them tap into their own capability. But I will always want to be doing that with a lot of grace and with a consistent communication of, I'm in this with you. I mean, you just heard me tell the story about reaching for my laptop, trying to book flights for my 24-year-old son. Like, I'm in this with you. The instinct is still strong in me, and I write about this, and I teach this, and I podcast about it. So I want parents to hear, I want to challenge you, and I want to do it from a place of, I'm in this with you.
Amen. David, thank you so much for your expertise. Thanks for writing, and thanks for giving us more time today. We're so grateful for you and for the work you do, and for CeCe, and for Sissy, and for all the ladies that have made a big difference in your life. We're grateful for all of them.
You all, it's a joy to be with the two of you. Thank you for doing good and faithful work in the world. It's a pleasure to intersect with you again.
Well, thanks for listening, friends. If you think it's as important as we do to disciple our families, please help us out by giving us a great review wherever you listen to podcasts. Visit one of our sponsors, share this episode with one of your friends. If you want to keep up with us or join the conversation, you can find us at familydiscipleship.com or follow the Family Discipleship Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Episodes come out every other week, so we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks.